Racing has long been a gamble. Toss the dice. Spin the wheel. What better place to race than the city made famous by gambling? Coming up next from Las Vegas Motor Speedway, it's the Toshiba Copiers and Facts Nevada Grand Prix. Today we feature the Speedvision Cup for stock sports cars. Live on Speedvision.
Here leaning into this beautiful M3 BMW with the qualifying man on pole position. Andy Pilgrim, congratulations. A great qualifying day for you.
Yeah, it was excellent. It went really well. We were kind of surprised with the turbos being out there. We're the only non-turbos here in the Grand Sport class, so we were very surprised, very happy. The car works tremendously well in the infield.
Well, they're trying to go. They have it for the qualifying. They're certainly on top of that, but can they do it for the next 3 hours? Down to turn one to Greg Kramer.
Thanks, Biz. Hi, everybody. This corner is crucial, and it's been giving people fits all weekend long in practice and qualifying. The reason is you come in, you're not up on that banking, you're on the flat warm-up lane, makes the turn in the left-hand approach very tight. Then you transition big time through this right-hander, all the weight goes to the outside, and the problem is this curbing. If it hits hard and bounces you up, it throws you all out of control. Or is this field going to be able to get through this turn clean? You'll find out here in Speedvision next.
Nestled between Interstate 15 and Nellis Air Force Base, some 10 miles north of the city, is Las Vegas Motor Speedway. On this last weekend of April, the weather is cool, with cloudy skies, a temperature in the low 70s, very windy conditions, and a chance of rain. Well, of course, when you come to Las Vegas, you expect something special, and that's exactly what we have for you this weekend. 6 hours of live sports car racing, including the Speedvision Cup coming up next. Hi, everybody. I'm Gary Lee, alongside Jeremy Dale. You've met our pit reporters, John Bizignano and Greg Kramer, but, you know, the guys have been here before, but the track is totally different this time.
Well, yeah, Gary, it's longer, and which means it's better racing. There are better passing zones. There's more room to race. Overall, it's just a much better facility this time around.
Well, the format today is very simple. Throw out 35 cars in 4 series, drop the green flag, and let them go for 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Well, and they often don't go for 2 hours and 45 minutes without some type of yellow flag, because these cars run very close, and as you say, with 4 classes, we're lapping cars constantly. The faster Grand Sports cars will get through these cars very quickly, so there will be a lot of action here at Las Vegas.
And of course, the top running cars will need 2 pit stops. Some of those in the touring and compact classes, maybe only 1. Weather could play a factor. In fact, it's very, very cloudy. There is a chance of rain. Very, very windy. So we'll take this break and come back with live coverage of the second stop on the 1998 schedule for the Speedvision Cup. Welcome back to Las Vegas Motor Speedway for live Speedvision Cup racing. Today's coverage is brought to you by Toyota. Every day belongs to you. Make it count. Toyota, every day. And Toyo Tires. On the road or on the track, Toyo Proxys radios deliver quality second to none for uncompromised performance. Toyo Tires, driven to perform. As you can see, the engines are fired. The cars are now leaving the pit lane, 35 in all. There are 4 different classes: the Grand Sport, the Touring, the Sport, and the Compact. So 4 races within 1 race. The second stop on the schedule. The first time out was at Sebring in torrential rains. Let's hope that's not going to be a problem here this afternoon.
Well, I mean, it's hard to match Sebring for rain, but weather is a bit of a factor here today. As you said earlier, Gary, there is a possibility of rain, and the wind today has just been fierce all day long, and it continues to be.
Well, in the front row, the fast qualifier, you heard from Andy Pilgrim what a record he has, 108 straight finishes. He'll team with Terry Borcheller. Randy Popes will team with Sylvain Tremblay. That is a team that actually won the last outing, and that was at Sebring, but one driver, Nick Ham, has been replaced this weekend. He had other commitments. The fast team qualifying in the sport class, Steve Pfeffer in the number 81 BMW, so he'll have the fast time in that. The fast time in the touring class, Will Nonamaker in a Mazda, and fast in the compact class was a Steve Nowicki Honda. They'll start back in 25th position.
And what a field we have. The one thing that we have not mentioned yet is the lack of V8 powered cars in this field. There are no Firebirds here, there are no Camaros here, there are no Mustangs here. So it really changes the complexion up at the front in the Grand Sports class, and we'll probably get into that a little bit later as we go down through this grid, and you can just see the variety of cars throughout the field here.
And once again, Andy Pilgrim, the fast qualifier in a non-turbocharged BMW. This track will require a lot of braking. The braking will be tested throughout the afternoon, and these cars that are turbo-powered will use up a lot of fuel.
Well, I think the braking is a very good point, because this racetrack is hard on brakes, and the BMWs are phenomenal with the brakes. The German cars have always had an advantage with the braking. The Japanese cars have always been at a bit of a disadvantage under braking, so that'll play into BMW's hands.
As we told you, the track has been reconfigured over the winter. There's a new infield section, making it a 14-turn, 2.25-mile road course. There is the course, and there are a couple of spots we want to showcase as we take a look at the BMW track map.
And that's where Greg Kramer was, down in turn 1 in the chicane, and that is single file down there. If you go through that side by side, you're going to ruin your lap time, and you're going to really lose ground to fellow competitors. And of course, this is the new part of the racetrack, extended down the back straight to turn 5. A lot of action here, very hard braking, very slow corner. We're going to look for a lot of action down in turn 5.
They come out of that road course section. They will not use the banking on this 1.5-mile tri-oval. As the pace car pulls off, the field now belongs to Andy Pilgrim, who teams with Terry Borcheller in that BMW. They should get the green this time by for 2 hours and 45 minutes of stock sports car racing.
And Andy's going to want to get this start off to a slow start, because he's at a power disadvantage to these turbocharged cars. You see the Toyota Supra get up beside the Mazda there to try and make it too wide. Looks like Pilgrim gets a little bump down into the chicane, but Pilgrim will take it into the chicane. So Pilgrim leads through turn 1. Look at the action here.
Well, we expect to see a lot of action as the car gets very high and off in the grass. And they have to get single file now as they go back up onto the backstretch. And again, this backstretch, Jeremy, is banked slightly, so there is a transition when they come down here, the braking area into turn 5.
Absolutely, and Andy Pilgrim did exactly what he needed to do going into turn 1 on that start. He brought it down slow, didn't let the turbo cars use their horsepower advantage, held the inside line, and now he leads. Now, he's not got a huge lead, but let's give these guys a lap or so to settle in. But that's what Andy Pilgrim needed to do. He needed to get out in front, and now he'll have to try and stay there.
I talked to Randy Popes before the race. I said, is this wind a factor? He said, no, in the stadium concept, really the big, tall grandstands block the wind from the infield. That's not a problem. He said, I'll stay in the car until perhaps the second pit stop. We'll have to make 2 stops, and we hope to have a couple of yellows along the way.
Well, I'd be very surprised if we didn't have any yellows in this 2-hour and 45-minute timed event.
As Randy Popes is racing here, that's a racing family. His wife, Linda, is a PPG pace car driver, and she's at Nazareth this weekend.
Well, you can see our leaders here as they complete their first lap, back down into turn 1, single file. Not nearly as much action as we saw the previous lap. So you've got a BMW up front, followed very closely by a Mazda RX-7, followed closely by a couple of Toyota Supras. Eric Van Cleef, who qualified 3rd, had been on the front row something like 15 times straight. So that was a record that got broken here at Las Vegas.
Let's go back to the pit lane and hear more about Randy, Greg.
Yeah, Gary, interestingly, Randy is a very accomplished driver, certainly, with Super Touring wins, numerous club championships and endurance championships. However, he has never run with this team. Their normal co-driver with Sylvain is Nick Ham. He's racing in Europe. They brought Randy, and I talked to Randy, and he said, I've never started an endurance event with driver changes. I've always been the finishing driver. He said, this is going to be interesting. The way he's running now, it looks like he's adjusted rather nicely.
Yeah, he talked to me about the difference in psyche. He said, when you're running the anchor leg, you throw it all to the wind. Everything is on the line. He said, my responsibility is to go out, maintain a pace, keep all four wheels on the race car, and return the race car to the anchor driver.
Absolutely, and not only return it, but return it in good enough shape to go out and win the race. It'd be very easy for Randy to run this car hard for about a half an hour and literally use up the car, mainly the brakes. That would be very easy to do, and that's his job, is to hand that car over to Tremblay in a position and with a car that can go out and win the race.
But would you concur that right now he's using a great race strategy? Let somebody else set the pace. That 70 car could be quicker right now, but let somebody else set the pace and perhaps conserve some fuel.
Well, these guys, they feel each other out. You know, they go out there, they see how hard the other guy's going to run, and then they decide, okay, I can step it up and not hurt the car. You know, or maybe I don't have to run quite as hard. Maybe I can just sit here and cruise around for a while, and as you say, conserve a little fuel, go a little bit easier on the brakes, and keep that car as fresh as possible for the later portions of the race.
You're looking now at the infield section, which consists of turns 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, as a BMW continues to lead the Turbo Mazda from Las Vegas. Welcome back to Las Vegas. Gary Lee alongside Jeremy Dale with Greg Creamer and John Visignano patrolling pit lane as we take a look at the 99 car. That is Scott Hartman. He now is 8th overall, but leading in class. He leads in the sports class, running about 15.5 seconds behind the overall race leader, Andy Pilgrim. So once again, we have 4 classes racing here together for 2 hours and 45 minutes. And on this size of a racetrack with this tight infield section, traffic will play a role in the outcome of this event.
Well, it always does, and especially when you get into multi-class racing. As we look at kind of an unusual car here, the 99 car, the big Audi, all-wheel drive. And this is a very large car and a sedan, not like a two-door little sports car.
He is presently tied for 3rd in the point standings after the season opener in the rain at Sebring.
And the 99 car running in 8th overall right now.
There's that slight banking on the backstretch into the braking zone. Left-hander, and you'll see some guys overcook this area throughout the afternoon and spin out.
Well, there's no question about that. The good news is if they do run into brake problems down there, there's plenty of pavement, there's plenty of road to just run straight down past turn 5 and not hit anything.
Here's the touring class leader. That is Bob Endicott, Peter Schwartzoff, the team driver. So he now is leading in the touring class. We also have the compact class here this afternoon. You know, when you're driving a touring car or a compact car, obviously you have to watch the mirror because you have the faster cars as the race wears on, the faster cars coming up. So you're driving out both the front and the back of the race car.
Well, I think there's a proportional relationship to how much you look out front and how much you look out back, depending on what class you're in. If you're driving Grand Sports, you spend very little time looking in your mirrors, and by the time you get down to a compact car, you probably spend more time looking in your mirrors than you do out front. You literally have to drive half looking in your mirrors.
And you're watching the car that's leading in class. You're watching the car that also won the class title at Sebring. So the team drivers of this number 40 entry now enjoy a points lead. Bob Endicott and Peter Schwartzoff in the touring class. You see, they're not up on the banking. They work on that apron down there, which is totally flat. Now, in some other class competition, we'll be on the air live for 3 hours again tomorrow with the World Sports cars, the GTS cars. Some of those will use that banking, but again, that transition area is a very difficult one to negotiate.
It is quite abrupt, and as you get into more sophisticated race cars that run lower to the ground, that run stiffer suspensions, they're less tolerant to those kinds of changes, whereas these cars, being much closer to production cars, can handle that transition from the banking to the apron quite a bit more effectively.
This is just a phenomenal race facility. Opened up about a year and a half ago. The first race weekend featured the Indy Racing League. But we have like 20 different racing venues within this one complex. In fact, today, as we watch the live Speedvision Cup race continuing, outside what will be turn 1, there is a driving school going on, and in behind the grandstand there's a half-mile dirt which will feature the USAC Western State Sprint Cars and Midgets this evening. So there's all kinds of motorsports activity right here. Plus, there's a golf outing in town this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, they've really gone to town with this facility. And I have to say, as far as the racetracks where you run an oval with a road course configuration in the infield, this is about as good as it gets. It's always a bit of a compromise when you do that, but in terms of quality of racing and the quality of the racetrack, this is right up at the top of the list.
There's a battle up in front. There's a look at the number 70 car of Pope's.
And these are the cars running second, third, and fourth. So this is, as you can see, Andy Pilgrim is now legged out. A little dust there getting kicked up on the infield. One of the Oldsmobiles spins down at turn 8.
That's number 98, Terrence Dyson in the Olds at Chiva. We will see a lot of this throughout the afternoon, right in front of the leader.
Well, Andy does a very solid job there. Fortunately, he's got a lot of real estate to play with there, and he was just able to squeeze on the brake pedal and wait to see where that Oldsmobile was going to go. But he had opened that lead up to about 2 seconds, and he lost all of it in that one little incident lapping that slower car.
Let's see, very early in the race, we're seeing the lapping already because of the discrepancy in horsepower and top speed. There is the leader in the compact class. That is the number 6 car. That is the Steve Nowicki teamed entry. Rick Dishon and Mark Greenheisen also involved with that.
And the compact class, very popular with these smaller Hondas. Of course, Honda has a lot of cars throughout the field, but in the compact class, these are not particularly powerful cars, but they do handle very well.
This is last year's championship car, and for Rick, his first pro race. Steve Nowicki, the team manager, captain of the driving team this afternoon, is a former SCCA rally champion. I'm talking to several drivers. They say this track is not real taxing. This track is really favoring the setup of the race car as opposed to the horsepower, and they really have time to relax on the big, long, bow-shaped straightaway here through the tri-oval, and it's just not that taxing. Plus, it's not a hot day. It's very, very cool, so it is comfortable for the drivers in the cockpit.
No, it's a great day to be in a race car today here at Las Vegas, but having said that, the racetrack is hard on cars. We talked about the braking issue, and look at these corners. Very hard on right side tires because you've got these long corners that last forever, and they keep those tire temperatures right up. So pretty hard on the equipment here at Las Vegas.
A lot of drivers find this as a good entry-level position to springboard on. Other drivers have had a very successful career come back and just find a home to run here. In fact, the compact leaders right now, or the sports leaders, I should say, Endicott and Schwartzhoff, a total of 107 years of age between them. Bob is 49 and Peter is 58. So we have some young guns, some young shoes, and some not so young shoes out there playing this afternoon in windy, overcast conditions in Las Vegas.
Well, that beautiful 99 car that you were talking about that was leading its class has just made a significant stop in the pits. It was all down to electronics. Talking earlier to the co-driver, he says this automobile is set up fantastically for the course. They're not worried about the mass, they're not worried about the weight, but the electronics is still something that they're sorting out. So right now, the 99 car has lost that beautiful lead, but they got 3 hours to try and make it up. They feel very confident that the electronics will last, especially with the cool weather.
Well, of course, that takes them out of that pit sequence. That also gives the lead in the sports class to the number 81 BMW of Steve Pfeffer.
And they didn't spend any time putting any fuel in that car. They just sorted out some of the, they had the hood open very briefly, sorted out a couple of problems, and it was on its way. But as Biz said, they did lose the lead in their class. There's certainly plenty of time to make that up. As we look at Andy Pilgrim again, out in front, about a 2-second lead right now as he flicks it through the chicane down at turn 1.
Here's some of the close racing back in the pack. There is the number 40 of Bob Endicott, back there in 13th position. You can see how tight this infield road section is. 43 car is now in the 12th position. That is Joe Nonamaker in the Mazda. And the 07 right behind is John Norris in the Nissan. New touring leader is Joe Nonamaker now, that number 43 car, the Planet Earth Mazda. And realistically, you can't really tell, you know, when you have a position change this early in the race. You talk about strategy. You know, maybe it's a strategy. Let somebody else set the pace. Maintain a certain pace. If somebody else in your class wants to run faster, let him go. It's a long race.
Well, you've got to let the race settle down. You've got to find out. You know, qualifying's one thing. You have an idea where these other cars are going to run in terms of lap time. But you've got to let the race just settle down and get into a rhythm, and that's very important. And then you can decide how you want to approach the second half of the race. But mostly for the first half of the race, you're just getting a feel for what everyone else is doing and what your car wants to do and what your pace is going to be.
12th, 13th, and 14th right now, lapping one of the team cars there for the Planet Earth Mazda team. To get through that tight infield section, not much passing through here. It's just through the turns 7, 8, 9, and turn 10. And look at this, good side-by-side racing.
Yeah, look at that curve. That curve really moves those cars around. You can use them a little bit. You don't want to use them too much, but this is a lot of cut and thrust in here in the infield. Down to turn 8, a little tap there, going into turn 8, side-by-side through 9.
98 is a lap car. Mark Hine in car 38.
And that's a decent length straight there in the infield, followed by a nice quick third gear right-hand sweeper and a very hard little braking zone down to second gear for a very slow left-hander that essentially leads you out onto that main straightaway. Exit speed being very critical here to get you down to turn 1 with maximum top speed.
You know, that is something you're taught in all the driving schools. Your top speed down a straightaway is predicated on how quickly you can get through that turn leading on to the straightaway.
Exit speed is king, as we say in the racing school business.
As we run through the overall standings, as you indicate the race starts to settle into a pattern. See the touring cars back there in 13th, 14th, 15th, on through the 18th position. The breakdown for the classes today, we have 9 in the Grand Sport, only 4 in the sports class, 15, the touring class is the big class this afternoon, and 7 in compact.
A very nice mix. You can see the Mazda Miatas there. I won't say dominating. Look at this action down into turn 5, locking brakes. Those cars, as you said, Gary, the racetrack, the straightaway there is on a bit of an angle.
Watch this entry into the turn 1 chicane area. This was just a lap ago.
Very hard braking there.
Look at this. Look at that eclipse. And the car is very light on that right side and gets airborne. A lot of air.
Well, that is that curve where Greg Kramer was standing during the opening, and that shows you what happens when you get up on that curve. It'll really, the car is already very light on the right side, and if you give it that extra little shove, you know, almost all of these front-wheel drive cars under full cornering load will lift that inside rear tire.
Looked like a driver's side down maneuver on that. Looked like something the Joy Chitwood Thrill Show.
Well, when you've
which is basically a ramp anyway. You're ramping the car off that curbing down there.
You're absolutely right.
There is your leader once again. The leader is Andy Pilgrim. However, the team driver is Terry Borcheller, and he's standing by as a very interested spectator, Greg.
I'd say he's interested. Terry Borcheller is the driver, the co-driver for the lead car that's being hustled around by Andy Pilgrim. And Terry, first of all, what a great opportunity this season for you to partner Andy. I mean, he's the defending GT1 champ.
Yeah, we were really wanting a championship this year, and I mean, the best way to do it is to get a teammate that could do something like Andy could do, and he's fantastic. He's been really a big help to the team. The team has come a long way. They've just really gelled. Everything's working. We have a great car with the BMW. It's going to be a good year, I hope. It started out real good, and I think it's going to work out real well.
Now, interestingly, there are a lot of cars here that you've run against before that aren't here. The Mustangs aren't here. The GM products aren't here. You like that, or would you rather go up against them?
I'm a competitor. I would much rather have a full field. I think the cars that are here, we're going to put on a good show with the Mazdas and the Supras, but it's sad not having a V8 in the field with the Mustangs and the Pontiacs. I really honestly wish they were here. There's nothing better than good competition, and hopefully everything will get squared away, and we'll have a good full field the next one.
Now, you were hinting that you didn't really expect to lead here, and Andy's just doing what he can.
Well, with the temperature drop, we were figuring that the turbos were really going to pick it up a little bit in the race. Yesterday, the whole weekend, really, it's been kind of hot, and that favors our car. The turbos were going to slow down, but with the temperature change, it's cool right now. We thought they were going to go pretty quick on the start, but Andy had a great start, and looks like he got into the turn first, so traffic's helping him out a lot right now, and I think it's going to help us in the long run.
Well, it is Vegas after all. You play the cards you're dealt.
Roll the dice. Andy Pilgrim and Terry in this BMW are now tied for second in the Grand Sports Drivers category. They finished second overall at Sebring. Right now they are enjoying the lead on lap number 15, but the laps, although they count, we don't count the laps for the total number. It's a total time of 2 hours and 45 minutes from Las Vegas. Our live Speedvision coverage of the Speedvision Cup continues from Las Vegas. You take a look now at the number 81 BMW of Steve Pfeffer and Mike Fitzgerald. They are now leading in the sports class. Car number 81, and they are 10th overall, working on lap number 15.
And they took over when the Audi pitted. They took that class lead. And these cars have been very strong the last year and a half. Really well developed at this point. Similar to the M3, but certainly not nearly as powerful. The brakes aren't as big. The tires aren't as big. The same basic body shell of a car, but certainly quite different in terms of power and braking.
Terry, in our last interview before that commercial break, talked about the change in temperature. They practiced yesterday. They qualified this morning, and obviously it was much colder today. And that created a problem for some of the crews that really wanted to scuff in some tires this morning. Well, you're looking at the number 99 that was the leader in the sports class. Made that pit stop, and now he is 1 lap off the pace. But again, it's a long race.
Well, yeah, but it's hard to get that lap back, and it doesn't take much to lose a lap. You know, any unscheduled pit work here, and you're probably not going to win your class. I mean, it's just not very likely if you make an unscheduled pit stop. So they have gone down a lap. That's not to say they can't get that lap back, but it just makes their day that much more difficult.
It can be two different psyches, though. A race driver can say, darn, I'm out of competition, and it takes the edge off. Or he can say, I'll put the bit in the mouth, and then if he overdrives the car, he's asking for more trouble.
Well, and that's where the discipline comes into it, where you have to just settle down. You have to say to yourself, okay, we've had a small problem. Now I've got to go out. I've got to drive the race that I was going to drive before, except now I've got to just add that little edge. I've got to take maybe a little bit of a chance in one place that I might not otherwise take, so you can try and get that lap back and get back to the front of your class.
Once again, it is a 2 hour and 45-minute time event. Little bumper tag going on out there, little bump steer.
Little bump drafting from the Nissan 240 with one of the Acuras. Down through the tri-oval and into turn 1. And of course, those two cars will go faster bump drafting like that as the Nissan pulls out on the inside, going back down to turn 5. Here's a replay through the tri-oval down past the start-finish line. Little touch there.
That's Bob Endicott in the 40 car. The 07 is John Norris in the touring class, and they were hooked up bumper to bumper.
Yeah, the officials, look at that. Norris has gotten by now as he pulled out going down into turn 5, so he was able to make that pass and make it stick. Now let's see if the 40 car will return the favor this time around on the front straightaway, because he's certainly close enough.
You really think so? And for some drivers, that can be very disconcerting. To to glance up in the mirror and realize that somebody's right there on your bumper. Obviously, in sprint car racing, midget racing, USAC Silver Crown, there are no mirrors on those cars.
Well,
you go by sound, but here you know what's back there.
Well, these guys are very used to running close together, and they're very used to bumping and rubbing, and it's just part of this type of racing, especially when you have so many classes intermingled on the racetrack at the same time. None of these cars are going to come out of this race without a little mark on them. There's no question about that.
Well, we're looking at a BMW leading, and here's a guy that has joined us in the broadcast booth who would love to have a BMW leading tomorrow in our live coverage. Bill Oberlin, the GTS 3 champion from 1 year ago, and it's a pretty good omen, perhaps, see that BMW out there.
Hey, it must mean BMW is the car for this track. Last year, we had a tough time. I exactly raced in that car that is leading now. Last year, we finished second, and it looks like they're having some better luck this year. It looks like they're doing a perfect job.
Well, of course, you are right now where you left off last season after the run at Sebring. You and your teammate are now leading in that GTS 3 Drivers' Championship with Boris Said, and you look like you could be the guys to beat again tomorrow.
Yeah, can you imagine? I mean, we go to Daytona 24-hour race, we win that one. We go to Sebring 12 hours, we win. We get a pole at both races. We're looking pretty good here. BMW has done something kind of weird. They took one of our cars and they said, hey, it's such a good car, let's race it in GT2. So tomorrow I'll actually be racing in both GT3 and 2. I start the GT3 car, hop out of that, Boris will come in and I'll finish up in the GT2 car.
Tell us about the changes to this racetrack. It's been reconfigured in the infield. Is this to your liking, better for your car than it was last year?
Yeah, for me, whenever they make a track a little bit more challenging, I like it better, and it seems to be that it works more in my favor. And now they've added a few more turns, a few more little complex corners, and I like it a lot better. And it is a fantastic facility. I mean, if you look at it here, it's out in a beautiful setting, and it looks like it's going to be a great place for years to come.
Well, of course, as we're talking to Bill, there's some great action as the leaders. There's your lead BMW going by the lead cars in the touring class.
And now this is when, if you're in the touring class, this is when you hold your breath because the leader has come by you. And if one of your competitors in your class is up in front of the leader and we were to get a full course caution at this moment, you go down a lap to the leader in your class. So this is when a lot of these guys really hold their breath as the leader comes through the pack and starts lapping these slower cars.
And you see the Norris car, the 07 car, move over and let the leader go by. So we will take a quick break from our live coverage of the Speedvision Cup from Las Vegas. Bill Oberlin will hang around and give us some more expert commentary on the flip side of this commercial break. Watching true stock car racing, the showroom stock sports class, live, the Speedvision Cup. There is your leader in the compact class. That is number 6. He's 25th overall. There's the 22 car second in class. The 22 car is Bob Bede, and Rick Dishaw, driving in his first professional race, has the lead now in the number 6 machine. He'll turn it over to the veterans Steve Nowicki and Mark Greenheisen. 25th and 26th overall right there, with a lap car number 41 in between those two leaders in the compact class.
And here's a perfect example. The 22 car is trying to chase down the 6 car. He's got the 41 car in front of him, which is a touring car, and he's got a GS car coming up behind him. So that's how busy these guys are. And in the meantime, he's trying to chase down the 6 car so that he can try and go up and take the class lead. Look at these guys. Just about all 3 of them wide of that apex, down into turn 5, way too hot. So the 22 car comes out in front. This Mazda will go by him quite easily once they get out of turn 9 onto that straightaway.
Peter Herzog in the 12 car. That's one of those GS cars. 12 car now 8th overall. Now, Bill, when you're out there, you're racing in 3. You talk about going in GTS 2 tomorrow. Talk to me, talk to the viewers as a driver watching both out in front and watching in back, because if you're in the 2 or 3 class, you have that 1 class or the World Sports cars coming up your tailpipes.
Exactly. I mean, you have to be almost a chameleon where you put one eye forward, one eye back. And when we got the World Sports cars coming up behind us, you have to be very careful. The closing rates are so fast, and you have your own race that you have to contend with. But I'll tell you, I've been on both sides of the fence. The World Sports cars have it much tougher because as they pass somebody, they have no idea what's in the guy's mind that they're passing. And that's where the mistakes happen, when the guy in front doesn't see what's happening from the guy behind, and they make these little collisions all the time.
Yeah, and compared to running 24 at Daytona or 12 at Sebring, tomorrow's race will be a sprint race. Talk about some different entry lines into this turn 5. 3 cars and 3 distinctly different lines.
Well, the RX-7, you can see he wants to make up some ground. He's a few positions back. He overcooks it in there and kind of blows the whole entry. Gets one car, and as a result, he's going to blow the next 3 turns. Another angle of the Mazda going over the curbing.
Well, this is a perfect example of no one really knowing what the other guy's going to do. And everyone wanting to get down into turn 5 as quickly as possible and to brake as late as possible. And as Bill said, the RX-7 just completely misjudged the braking, overcooked the corner entry, and there you go. Now here's our leader, the M3, and it looks like he's catching one of the 328s. Yes, he is. He's catching actually 2 328s, so a trio of BMWs here. And right now, an M3 leading the Grand Sport class, the 328 BMW leading the sports class. So a chance to pull off 2 class victories here today. And of course, Bill, a chance for you guys to pull off 2 class victories tomorrow in GTS2 and GTS3.
I tell you, if it's any indication of how well the BMWs are doing here, I've driven that 54 car, I've driven that 28 car there for Fitzgerald, I think that's who that is. And there is a big difference. The 54 car, the M3, has fantastic brakes and about, I don't know, 100 more horsepower, but you can't hardly tell there.
Well, there is second place, about the last reading, 3.8 seconds back. So that Turbo Mazda is running in second position. Let's check in on pit strategy, John.
The man who comes up with the strategy for the number 70 car, that Mazda Turbo. Seems like he's just holding his position. What's he saying to you, David?
Right now we're just trying to, follow the BMW out there, save brakes, tires, take a nice easy pace, manage our fuel, see what happens on the next round of pit stops, and go from there.
What about the fuel? In history, you've had to make 2 stops when the BMW has only had to make 1. Is that what's going to happen today?
I'm afraid that could happen, yeah. If it goes green the whole race, I think we'll probably do full pit stop and then a splash somewhere near the end. If we get a couple yellows, then maybe they'll do it in 1, but we'll have to look and see.
I think they got something up their sleeve down here. And David was also the technical man of the year last year in this series. They're thinking hard and looking at the fuel windows.
Well, of course, Randy Popes right now in second position was not sure if he would get out on the first stop or drive through to the second fuel stop, and that's part of the strategy that'll be played out down in the pit lane.
Well, and that's it. I mean, sometimes if an opportunity presents itself, you've got to duck in and you've got to put the fuel in. And if you think you can do it on 1 stop, then you've got to do your driver change at that point, because you must have 2 drivers in the car. 2 drivers must drive the car. Otherwise, if you don't do 2 drivers, no one scores any points. So to get any points, and Tremblay wants to win this championship, he's going to have to get in that car. So that is part of the strategy as well.
He feels like he has something to prove, because as we heard earlier, last year was just a terrible season for that Mazda team. So he feels like he needs something to prove, and a couple of victories early in the season would certainly help prove a point. But right now, they're closing in on that lead BMW as our live coverage continues from Las Vegas. Back live from Las Vegas, as you saw that yellow number 92 Toyota go by, perhaps you saw the sponsor on the nose of that car. That is Clonade, and the driver is Rael, the founder of Clonade, the world's first human cloning company. He also founded the Raelian movement and was a professional race driver for some 25 years before writing the world's best-selling books about UFOs, and says he is the most famous UFO contactee, as we've got some pit action going on down there a little early for a routine pit stop.
Well, I think we're having some pit action because we had some action on the racetrack. This car looks like it's got a problem at the right rear. Let's go down to Greg in the pits.
Yeah, they're going after the right rear corner for sure. Apparently, it went down. It deflated. They're also changing the right front. That tire didn't look too bad, but the right rear is an absolute absolute mess on this car, and they're getting it changed. Obviously, they're going to take the opportunity to top off. If they can fill it up while they're in here, then they can get out, maybe just make that splash at the end and make it live. But the tire, I don't know if we can see it over there, it is steaming and smoking terribly. It got cut or something. They're still trying to get it done. The tire is on. Now they're going to wait, just top off the tank, get every ounce of fuel in, and hope for something like a yellow to get them to the finish with just this one stop. Boy, the driver is just going crazy right now. Craig Conway is going, get me out, and they're still trying to get fuel in.
This team blew a right rear with about 5 laps to go last year, and it cost them the race win. Craig Conway was in that car and was up to a 7th position before that altercation. Well, they lose a valuable amount of time in the pit lane.
As we discussed, the right side tires here stay loaded for long periods of time. They're not super high loads, but they're loaded for long periods of time, and that's very hard on those right side tires.
And these are not per se racing tires. These are DOT approved street tires.
And if we go back to the lead, Andy Pilgrim up front, and look at who is right behind him. It's Randy Popes in the 70 Mazda. As they put another lap on the 99 car, the Audi. Nice little slide there by the Audi. And that's going to hurt Randy a little bit. Of course, that's what Andy wants to see in his mirrors. Now, I'm pretty impressed with the handling of that Audi. I mean, that's not a small car.
Yeah, Randy can hardly do anything with them there. I mean, and now the power of the RX-7 should, well, hopefully he'll... Look at that. Audi is quite quick, too, in a straight line.
And that's a good area to pass a slower car through that short straightaway.
Well, the Audi is not that much slower. That's what's so impressive about this car. There's Randy gets the power down and gets...
You see the gap that has developed now between first and second because Randy had closed in on the rear of Pilgrim's bumper, and he got stuck behind that 99 car. You saw it took the entire infield section to negotiate his way by. And now he'll have to close in on Randy. You know, Andy. We talked about Andy's finishing record, 108 consecutive finishes. And when you really think about that, guys, that's phenomenal because he's done that not on his own, but with all kinds of teammates. That means the teammate has to go out and bring the car back in one piece.
Well, not only with all kinds of teammates, but in all sorts of different cars, in all sorts of different series. I mean, that doesn't just apply to this series. It applies to other series within the sanction of professional sports cars. So it really is a very impressive record.
You know what's kind of interesting is tomorrow when I do my race, this could be good because Andy Pilgrim is my co-driver.
Whoa, whoa, whoa!
Spin! You can see that coming. That's the number 12 entry. That was Pete Herzog, and you could see that developing as he was under braking, turning into turn 5. He tried to save it, tried to dirt track through the corner, and just the rear end came around on him. Let's do some dirt track racing. There's a fine half-mile dirt track over here behind us. We'll put him in a midget or a sprint car this evening. Watch again.
Well, let's have another look here. And again, he just overcooks that corner. He turns in with too much entry speed, and the rear of the car gets away. Probably a little bit of turning and braking going on there, and the rear of the car just gets away. Does a good job not to do a full spin there, and doesn't lose a lot of time. But that was just, you know, once again, overcooking turn 5. Too much speed into turn 5.
And Scott Hartman had a windshield full of race car. Did a nice job to get by without making any contact.
Well, Bill, going back to what we're talking about Andy Pilgrim, you know, you are teaming with him tomorrow in the GT2 car. Assuming he finishes this race today, that kind of puts pressure on you to not ruin his record.
Or maybe his good luck omen will just drop right into our deal. Our GTS2 car, I know they've turned every limit up on the engine, and we're going to be in a whole new realm of how high we turn the RPMs, how tight they've run the tolerances, and even the engine guys are kind of like, ooh, man, there's no safety margin. So maybe Andy Pilgrim is our hope.
Yeah, maybe he is, or maybe he's really putting his record on the line because...
you guys always know how to put your own spin on things.
There we go. We won't be talking about that to Andy tomorrow. We'll just tell him it's another good run.
Well, he's having a good run here this afternoon. He continues to lead on lap 29, although this is a timed event. But he can't rest because not far behind is that Mazda of Randy Popes. We're taking a break and coming right back. We are back live with Speedvision Cup competition on Speedvision as we take a look at the 07 car of John Norris, the Nissan 240. He now is leading in class. That is the touring class, the 07.
But I'll tell you what, from 12th overall back to 22nd overall are all touring cars. So there's a whole bunch of cars that are on the same lap that are chasing this 07 car.
Bob Endicott in the 40 Acura. 12th overall for John Norris. Craig Stanton also will be teaming in that car later this afternoon. And again, this is one of the cars that could well go on one stop. And I'm somewhat surprised, guys, that it's been this clean this long. We're 45, 46 minutes into this race, and we've not seen a yellow.
Well, that's true. Although we've seen plenty of situations that could cause yellows, and sometimes, you know, you just have that stroke of luck where, you know, a couple of cars get together and no one ends up in the fence, or no one ends up, you know, with a flat tire that can't move, or broken suspension or whatever, causing a full course yellow. That's not to say that there haven't been plenty of opportunities so far.
For the most part, this is a very wide racetrack, with perhaps the exception of that infield section, so there are some runoff areas. Once again, there's your 07 car, John Norris, who does not show up in the top 5 in the point standing, so a win here would vault him and his teammate into a position of challenging for a championship as we go through the season. And I'm sure when the guys woke up this morning, despite that threat of rain in the forecast, they looked at the sky and thought, good, no torrential rain to deal with like we had at Sebring.
There was an amazing amount of wind when I was coming to the track this morning, and I thought, oh man, my allergies, here they go. But to talk again about how there's not too many accidents going on right now, or cautions, is because there's some great passing zones here, and there's other zones that are definitely not passing, and these people seem to be respecting the no passing zones, and they're content to just stay behind, and then they go behind the passing zones.
Look there at the touring standings, just over 2 seconds separating first and second. And there was a quick glance at your leader in the compact class. But once again, back to the leader in touring, John Norris in Nissan.
And I got to say, I'm pretty impressed with our stats guys who are doing those intervals down to the 1,000. Very impressive. So those are fairly accurate intervals.
We have a new compact leader now. The number 6 car has been in the lead, lost the lead, and got the lead back, and that was the rookie making his debut in professional racing competition this afternoon, Rick Bishon. And he'll be teamed with Steve Nowicki, the former SCCA rally champion.
Down into turn 1, very hard braking. This is where you don't, especially that second curve there, you really don't want to touch that curve.
Yeah, I mean, it's really funny, because every once in a while in the GT cars, you want to cut it as tight as you can to get as good a run on the way out. And you tend to touch it, and our cars are so stiff, they go up on 2 wheels. And our team owner keeps saying, you know, stay off the curb, stay off the curb. And sure enough, here comes some spectator with a picture of me on 2 wheels, and I'm trying to deny I never touched the curbs.
Yeah, video and pictures just do not lie, do they?
No, they really don't.
Well, but between video and pictures and, you know, onboard data acquisition and, you know, what's involved in modern race cars, there is no hiding.
No, there's really not. And I mean, if I ever make a mistake with the engine or something now, forget it. They're going to see it, I come back, and rather than try to deny it or something, you just come straight up.
Yeah, they download that telemetry, they take a look, and they know where you had a chance to breathe the engine or brush the brake or whatever. Our leader right now enjoying a 4-second margin. So once again, Andy Pilgrim continues to lead at the BMW over the Mazda of Randy Pope as our live coverage continues from Las Vegas.